Absolutely, it is Monday, the 13th of January 2025, a day that was characterized by Tanzanian activist none other than Maria Sarungi Tsehai speaking up about her ordeal that she experienced yesterday when she was abducted. Maria speaks to us tonight exclusively on the Daily Report. Also on State of the Nation later on, we host three people that are not new to your faces: Gigi Kagombe, MP Gatundu South, as well as Wambui Nyotu, Vice Chair NCIC, also Justina Wamai, former presidential running mate of the Roots Party. Go ahead and start engaging us on both conversations, that one with Maria Sarungi as well as on State of the Nation. Good evening, I am George Maringa. On Zen language is Rhoda Nyamai. Here are the highlights. Tonight, former LSK President Nelson Havi now files petition seeking the firing of CJ Koome and all Supreme Court judges. But CJ Koome dismisses the petition.
Justice is not for sale. I understand there are many brokers out there who broker for magistrates and for judges.
Also tonight, Tanzanian activist Maria Sarungi speaks after her release by the abductors on Sunday.
Part of the abduction was to get access to my devices and to get access to the activities that I do online, which include, of course, sometimes doing whistleblowing.
Maria, however, says Kenya is the safest country in the region. Plus, IG Douglas Kanja and DCI boss Mohamed Amin skip High Court again over the missing Mlolongo 4. They have been ordered to appear in court in person on Friday at 10 a.m. without fail. And Head of Government Delivery Unit Dr. Peter Mbai bids government buy, but the government says his contract ended long ago. We thank you for choosing TV47 to inform you. You can find us on the socials at TV47 News KE. You can find me at George Maringa _. Please use the hashtag Daily Report. Let's begin tonight, where Chief Justice Martha Koome has vowed to remain put till the end of her tenure, despite the intensified calls for her to leave office as the Supreme Court of Kenya President. Today, former Law Society of Kenya President Nelson Havi filed a petition to the Judicial Service Commission, JSC, calling for the removal of Koome together with the other 6 judges of the Supreme Court of Kenya. Havi, in his petition, accuses the 7 Supreme Court justices of gross misconduct and misbehavior, among other issues. Moiga William opens our broadcast tonight with that report.
Steadily taking the steps of the Supreme Court after the swearing-in of the newly appointed Chief Executive Officer of EACC, Chief Justice Martha Koome displayed a friendly smile, seemingly unbothered of the growing calls to have her kicked out as the country's head of the judiciary. Koome insisting she intends to serve as the President of the Supreme Court of Kenya to the end of her tenure.
Why would I resign of a tenure? I was appointed to serve for a tenure, and you have not given me reasons why you would want me to resign.
Former Law Society of Kenya President Nelson Havi, who has been consistent in leading a purge against Koome, Monday submitted a petition to the Judicial Service Commission calling for the hounding out of office of Koome, together with the rest of the Supreme Court judges. Havi, in his 263-page petition, urged the Judicial Service Commission to compel President William Ruto to set up a tribunal and kickstart the process of firing Koome. Philomena Mwilu, Njoki Ndongo, Mohamed Ibrahim, Smokin Wanjala, William Ouko, and Isaac Lenaola. The call to have the removal of the whole bench comes a day after Havi gave 6 of the judges a 24-hour deadline to back his call for the resignation of CJ Koome or face the same fate.
I'm actually not aware of the petition that has been brought to the JSC for my removal and the removal of the entire commission. I don't know when it was brought.
In the petition, Harvey had listed several complaints against the Chief Justice, including lack of leadership and direction as expected of a Chief Justice, corruption, controversial rulings, among others. For months now, Harvey and other lawyers have been calling for the resignation of CJ Koome, citing deep-rooted corruption in the judicial institution. Mike William, TV47.
Thank you, Moiga. Chief Justice Martha Koome has affirmed that the Judiciary will work with the EACC, that is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and the National Police Service to fight brokers who negotiate for bribes on behalf of judges and magistrates, or those judges and magistrates who broker for bribes on their behalf. She spoke during the swearing-in of Abdi Mohamud as the new CEO of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, as Chichi Josephine now reports in that swearing-in that saw Chief Justice Martha Koome also talk about the issues regarding justice and the fight against corruption that will be collaborated as well by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. The new CEO took oath of office today at the Supreme Court buildings in the presence of the Chief Justice, as is required by the Constitution. That story will be coming to you in a short while. Now tonight, the head of Government Delivery Unit, Dr. Peter Mbai, has announced his resignation from the position. However, the government has denied the reports over the resignation, clarifying that he ceased being an employee of the Government Delivery Services, GDS, on July 11, 2024, following the dissolution of the cabinet. Joash Onsare tells us more.
In a letter by the head of communication at the Government Delivery Unit, Dr. Peter Mbai ceased being an employee of the Government Delivery Services on 11th of July 2024, following the dissolution of the cabinet, since his tenure at the GDS was tied to the portfolio of the then Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Performance and Delivery Management, Moses Kuria.
I have served this government with a lot of passion, commitment, sacrifice, complete, because I was one of the people who actually founded, UDA, Kenya Kwanza, from Nakuru. I campaigned. I was at the forefront.
The letter says that the statement by Dr. Mbai is misleading and inaccurate to portray his departure as a resignation occurring in January 2025. GDU says that a formal communication with regard to the end of his contract was formally made to him on the 24th of July 2024 by the then Principal Secretary in charge of the State Department for Performance and Delivery Management. The Government Delivery Unit adds that all dues owed to Dr. Mbai were paid upon his conclusion of his service up to and including 11th of July 2024. As such, the letter adds that there are no pending financial obligations or unresolved issues pertaining to his former role within the GDS. The delivery unit adds that the assertions made by Dr. Mbai regarding unfavorable working conditions are without basis.
A lot of what I proposed was not done. There is a lot of structural issues, many issues about, you're supposed to work. What happens? The issue of the working issues and other issues. In short, there's been a lot of frustrations. And I don't want my name. I have a history. I have a record where I've come from for the last 10, 20 years.
Lee Konze OGW was appointed in an acting capacity as head of Government Delivery Unit on the 12th of July of 2024. The unit says that Dr. Mbai cannot therefore purport to resign from a position that he does not hold. In his resignation letter, Dr. Mbai had said that despite his passion, focus and consistency for reasons and issues that he have consistently brought to the attention of the head of public service, Felix Koskei, and have not been resolved to date, it has not been possible to carry out his duties as intended, and his position as head of Government Delivery Services is no longer tenable. Dr. Mbae added that in order to be accountable to the people of Kenya, owing to the fact that the appointment was widely circulated, he therefore requested to formally disengage from the appointment so as to pursue other interests.
The kind of how the government tracking delivery work is being done is going to produce the results that we promised Kenyans. That is what I think. That's my thought. I have not thought about this today. This is something I've been thinking for the last 6 months. Giving advice, by the way. When I say consistently, I've met everybody else who is my senior to try to tell them how we are going to work.
This comes just days after the Deputy Chief of Staff for Performance and Delivery Management, Eliud Owalo, named 6 experts to the Government Delivery Unit, GDU, to boost communication and stakeholder engagement. They include Carol Mandi, who is former advisor in the Ministry of Information, Aki Ojan Alai, a former minister in Kisumu County, media personalities Boniface Odinga and Patrick Amimo, as well as Wamboi Ngayu, who worked in the advertising field, and Alois Obare, who is a product development and delivery expert. Joash Onsare, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Joash. Let's take you to our earlier story where Chief Justice Martha Koome has affirmed that the Judiciary will work with the EACC and the National Police Service to fight brokers who negotiate for bribes on behalf of judges and magistrates, or those judges and magistrates who broker for bribes on their behalf. She spoke during the swearing-in of Abdi Mohamud as the new CEO of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, as Chichi Josephine now reports.
I, Abdi Ahmed Mohamud.
Speaking during the swearing ceremony of the EACC Chief Executive Officer Abdi Mohamud at the Supreme Court building, Chief Justice Martha Koome affirmed that the Judiciary will work with the EACC and the National Police Service to fight brokers who negotiate for bribes on behalf of judges and magistrates.
In the judiciary, justice is not for sale. I understand there are many brokers out there who broker for magistrates and for judges. Even if they are not brokers and the judges and magistrates are brokering for themselves, we want to bring this to an end.
The CJ reiterated her commitment to raising the levels of integrity of Kenya's judiciary as she called on the new CEO to support the judiciary to realize its duties.
We in the judiciary are ready to collaborate and to cooperate and to work with you, both as members of the National Council on the Administration of Justice and as people who have the duty of upholding the rule of law and building the hope of Kenyans that we can eradicate corruption within the judiciary.
In his inaugural speech, Mohamud vowed to diligently serve in his capacity as the EACC CEO and ensure recovery of proceeds of crime, fight corruption, as well as ensuring a sustainable approach of combating bribery.
I wish to offer my commitment and fidelity to the oath of office that I subscribed to in combating corruption, economic crimes, and unethical conduct in our country. As a commission, have made a decision to enhance our activities in this particular area with a view to recovering more assets that have been corruptly acquired by public officials.
Mohamud also reiterated his commitment to work with various stakeholders, such as Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum, to deliver tangible results in the fight against corruption.
We will be relaunching the Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum, which we refer to as CLIF in short, which brings together all sectors, both state and non-state actors.
Chichi Josephine, TV47.
Thank you, Chichi. 3 cabinet nominees, politicians Mutahi Kagwe, William Kabogo and Lee Kinyanjui, will be before members of parliament for vetting. Mutahi Kagwe, who has been nominated as the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Livestock Development, will be the first before the House at midday before William Kabogo, who has been nominated to head the Ministry of ICT at 3 p.m., while Lee Kinyanjui, who, if approved, will head the Ministry of ICT, will face the panel at 5 p.m. tomorrow. But who are they? Let's remind you of these gentlemen that were nominated by the President. Mutahi Kagwe was born in 1958 in Mokorene in Nyeri County. In the year 2005, he was appointed Minister for Information and Communication. In 2020, he was appointed Cabinet Secretary for Health. In Parliament, he was elected MP for Mokorene in 2013, Senator for Nyeri County, and in 2017, he lost the gubernatorial seat. In his early career, he worked at the Standard Group as between 1987 and 1989 as commercial director, as well as a private business, independent publishing house, and a public relations company. His vetting, that will be tomorrow, the 14th of January 2025. Mutahi Kagwe will be vetted at 12 p.m. at 12 noon. Next is William Kabogo. He was born in 1961 in Kumathai, Kiambu County. According to his biography in matters politics, he has been party leader to Jibebe wa Kenya Party. He was the first governor of Kiambu County, elected in 2013. First election as MP Juja was in 2002. He regained the seat in a by-election in 2010. In 2017, he was defeated by Ferdinand Waititu in the Jubilee nominations. He lost to Waititu in the 2017 election, and in 2017, he lost the governorship to Ferdinand Waititu. The third candidate, Lee Kinyanjui, was born. Lee Mayani Kinyanjui was the second governor for the county of Nakuru. He was born 47 years ago and is a graduate of Kenyatta University, having pursued a degree in literature and a master's degree in business administration at Nairobi University. Lee is a former MP Nakuru Town when he was elected in 2007, and in 2013 he lost to unsuccessfully vied for the Nakuru gubernatorial seat and served as Assistant Minister for Roads as well. He was the first chairperson of the National Transport and Safety Authority, NTSA. Now, away from the candidates who will be vetted tomorrow by Parliament, the High Court has ordered the Inspector General of Police, Douglas Kanja, and Director General of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, Mohammed Amin, to immediately release 3 individuals, Justice Mutumwa, Martin Mwao, and Karani Mwema, who were abducted in Mlolongo more than a month ago. Justice Chacha Mwita also ordered the 2 police chiefs to appear in court in person on Friday at 10 a.m. without fail after they failed to appear today. Mike Kagwongo with the details.
The Director of Criminal Investigations, DCI Mohammed Amin, and IG Douglas Kanja have been ordered by High Court Judge Chacha Mwita to appear before him on Friday this week without fail. The police boss's disregard for court orders angered the judge, who threatened to punish them severely.
And failure to attend court despite being served is beyond belief, given their mandate as officers serving under the Constitution and the law. The court must state clearly that the Inspector General of Police and the Director of Criminal Investigations have a duty to the people of Kenya in protecting their lives and properties.
The judge had ordered DCI boss Amin and IG Kanja to come before him on Monday in order to provide an explanation for the 3 missing men's location. However, neither of them showed up for the hearing as instructed, nor did they send a representative. By the time the 2 were anxiously needed in court, DCI boss Mohammed Amin was attending the swearing-in ceremony of the new EACC CEO Abdi Mohamud. IG Douglas Kanja had, however, sent his deputy Eliud Langat to represent him at the ceremony. It was regrettable, according to Justice Mwita, that the police chiefs had not shown up for the court despite being served with the court documents. The two top law enforcement officials had been ordered to appear in court and produce Justice Mutumwa, Martin Mwau and Karani Mwema, who were believed to have been held incommunicado by the police.
The respondent filed and served response to the petition within 2 days after service. The Inspector General of Police and the Director of Criminal Investigations do release Justice Mutumwa, Martin Mwau, and Karani Mwema immediately and unconditionally. I'm re-emphasizing the orders I issued earlier.
Additionally, no lawyer was present to represent them or explain their absence. Mike Kagwango, TV47, Nairobi.
Indian rights activist Maria Sarungi Tsehai has broken her silence over her ordeal yesterday when she was abducted in broad daylight in Kilimani area, Nairobi. Sarungi links the Tanzanian government to her abduction, citing her online activism ahead of the country's general election. Sheila Chelangat reports.
Sunday afternoon, yet another foreign national was allegedly abducted on Kenyan soil. Maria Sarungi Tsehai, a Tanzanian national and activist who has been residing in the country since 2020. For her, the incident was nothing short of a scene from a movie.
When they were taking me, I looked into his face, but he was wearing a mask and a cap. I saw on his eyes. The others I didn't see. But I think my sense tells me that they were younger based on the voice.
This 26-second amateur footage recorded during the alleged abduction shows a black Toyota Noah van with the registration number KCZ 513T speeding off. TV47, however, has established that the details of the registered ownership of vehicle do not match the car brand, which, according to the NTSA portal, should be a Mitsubishi Canter lorry.
The other question that I got was, what do I do exactly? But every time I wouldn't answer, I would tell them that when you abducted me, what information did you have about me? And they really didn't like the word abduct.
Maria Sarungi, who has been a key critic of the Samia Suluhu-led government in Tanzania, has linked her ordeal yesterday to the Tanzanian government, citing her online activism ahead of the country's general election.
Part of the abduction was to get access to my devices and to get access to the activities that I do online, which include, of course, sometimes doing whistleblowing, but also doing a lot around abductions in Tanzania. So that is the first thing that I really felt that they really wanted.
Human rights defending organizations have termed Sunday's incident as unfortunate and that it paints a worrying picture of the state of Kenya's human rights context.
From July till today, no investigation has been done, no investigation has been cleared, and we are not being told the people who are responsible.
It really brings a worrying question: who is safe?
For Maria, however, Sunday's attempted abduction has not deterred her spirits of activism, vowing to continue fighting for democracy and basic human rights. Sheila Chelangat for TV47.
Indeed, thank you. Thank you so much for staying with TV47. We are now delighted to speak exclusively to Maria Sarungi Tsehai. She is a Tanzanian activist who was arrested and abducted just over 12 hours ago here in Kenya, and she joins us from Nairobi. Hello, Maria. How are you doing?
I am okay, and I'm lucky to be alive. Thank you very much for having me.
Brilliant. Could you just please, in a nutshell, briefly describe to us the events surrounding the situation and the scenario that you experienced yesterday?
Yes, the abduction actually happened in front of a salon in a place called Chaka Place, whereby I had called a rider, I would call it a rider, but it's a taxi, through one of the apps. When he arrived, it was a young man. When he arrived there at Chaka Place, one of the first things that I did was get in the vehicle, and he was immediately out of the gateway, outside the gate, and a black van blocked his way. Two individuals that I saw, but eventually I was told there were three of them, and I realized later in the vehicle, got out of the car. They dragged me out of the vehicle, and I resisted. I really did. It took them a while to put me into the car because I resisted as much as I can. They put me, after that, in the black van, and they were speeding away. I would like to point out that almost immediately there was a bus that tried to block their way. It was a City Hopper, I think that's what it's called, tried to block its way. It managed to swerve and to continue. They sped very fast, and they kept looking for my phone. When they finally found the phone that I was trying to conceal, they asked for my PIN number, which I was not able to provide to them. And they continuously, and that's when I realized that I was handcuffed, so they continuously tightened the handcuffs. They tried to choke me. They tried to put like a cloth, I don't know what it was. They tried to like make me not see, and finally they tied my eyes. But whenever I was giving them the wrong PIN, they would also cover my nose and my mouth so that they could intimidate me and tell me that I should give them the right one. I would like to note that almost at the beginning, when I kept saying, "Where are you taking me? Who are you?" they said that they're taking me to the police station and they're police and I should not be worried. I didn't believe them. I knew that it's not possible. So I told them that how long will it be to the police station? They would say soon, but they would continue still to try to restrain me. And one of the things that I also noted as well was that in that race that they were doing, they eventually were out of Nairobi. And I'm assuming that because of the bumps that I was feeling and the speed that they were going, it was not in a normal city road. After a while, they stopped, and then they kept doing that they were going for a while. They would stop, they would get out. One or two individuals would get out of the car. It seems that there was some form of conversation they were having, something was happening outside the vehicle. Then they would return into the vehicle, or that person would return in the vehicle and then continue. Eventually, there was one time when we stopped for a very long time. And during that very long stop, there seemed to be a longer time that took place. Everybody got out of the vehicle except one who was continuously restraining me. That person was also approached by one of them, of the other one, who whispered something, but they made sure I couldn't hear because they covered my head. They talked in whisper, and it was after that stop that finally we were driving, and then they stopped. They told me to get out of the vehicle, not look around once the blindfold is off, wait for the car to disappear, and then start walking, find a way, or a taxi or whatever it is to get home, which I did. It was quite a walk. It was dusk. It got dark very quickly. So I had to walk for quite a while before I could find two cars parked, and I assumed they were Uber. So I asked one of the driver to take me back to the apartment, which he did.
Would you perhaps estimate where you were dropped off?
That is a little bit difficult because it was very dark. Also, when I was in the vehicle, one of the things, or one of the conditions they gave, they told me that I should not talk to anyone. At the beginning, when I started walking, I felt that they're following me, that like they're observing me from far, so I was very scared. I didn't want to talk to anyone. And when I got in the vehicle, I was silent throughout. So I realized a bit later that I was at Gong Road Carrefour. That's the first marker that was familiar to me. So I didn't say much to the driver because within a short time after that, he dropped me. But I had appealed that if that driver in any way remembers, then maybe he can come forward and tell me, where he found me, or where I found him for that matter.
Yeah, you released the video after you release, obviously shaken but relieved. What was going on in your mind when you realized at least you were safe?
To be honest, I think the first time I actually, and I'm not ashamed to say that I cried, was when I got home. I called my husband, and my husband appeared with Faith Odhiambo and Amnesty International people. And I think that's the first time that the real sense of relief, I started crying. It was very overwhelming. Honestly, there were moments in the vehicle when I started just counting that if they manage to take me across the border, they'll never find me. In Tanzania, people who get abducted, very rare of them. Very rarely do they ever get found.
What role, if any, do you believe the authorities here locally played in this? Was there any hand, you believe, from local authorities as well as international authorities?
My feeling was, and this is because of the way they were behaving in certain stops where we were on the road and I felt that there were people around us, these were not people who were officially sanctioned. So I don't think that if it's authorities like us as a big institution, what I felt was there were individuals who were part of this. Probably for me, it was more of a rogue operation. Some of the individuals didn't seem to have a lot of information about me and wanted me to confirm things which I refused to confirm for them, like my name. They wanted to know my marital status and stuff like that, but I was not confirming to them. However, there was one individual who appeared to know more and was speaking to me in Swahili and calling me by my name, but I refused to respond, of course. My personal belief, and of course that's more of a feeling I'm going on, I have a feeling this person could be he's probably from Tanzania and not Kenyan. And that is why my feeling is that this is mainly initiated from the Tanzanian side.
Yeah, you've been a fierce critic of the Tanzanian government not once. Do you think this has contributed to the occurrences of yesterday?
Of course, definitely it is related to my criticism, but also my activities, in the sense that I have been very, very outspoken about the abductions. I have filed a number of statements with the UN work group on enforced disappearance. So I do know that I am a thorn in their side. And one of the other things that I think is very important to say is that a lot of people who have been outspoken online and have been within the borders have been intimidated, and some disappeared. So I think there was that sense of frustration on their part that they couldn't get to me immediately. And this was one of the attempts of trying to reach me.
Yeah, you've spoken about the importance and the suppression of the freedom of expression in your country. Do you think that things are getting worse over time?
Definitely, it's getting worse. There was a time in 2020 under Magufuli when it was bad. Then it looked briefly under Samia Suluhu that it was getting better, but then we have gone back, if not to the same level, even worse than before.
Yeah, looking then, Maria, at this whole scenario, you're from Tanzania. We did see the incident from neighboring Uganda with Kizza Besigye. What do you think this speaks about Kenya's role, quote unquote, if, as it were, and with the silence from authorities, no side has spoken yet? What do you think this speaks about Kenya being, quote unquote, a hive or a den of such activities, this not being the first incident?
I think that primarily it's first of all important to note before I answer that question, yes, that Kenya has always been looked upon by those of us from East Africa as a safe haven, as a place where you will find a lot of support, rule of law, institutions that protect, and also who would work with human rights activists in order to ensure that they're safe in case you get into trouble in your own country. So I think that reputation is one of the reasons many of us have decided to set up business, to start our lives again in Kenya, and to feel safe. Unfortunately, my take has been that there are elements within the forces who might be the ones who are very eager to collude. So it's very important for the government of Kenya to ensure that that same reputation and safety that we all have been looking upon and admiring and actually living under continues. Those people who come across trying to abduct us and trying to harm us across the borders should not be given any leeway. There should be a very intensive crackdown on the borders to ensure that these kind of security exchanges don't happen. If there is any need, legally, whether it is to take us to court or to extradite, that can be done legally. And this is one thing that I know Kenya definitely has, which is the rule of law. And there's a whole procedure for that. So I think this is very important to maintain for the government of Kenya.
Yeah. As you went up, Maria, now that you've been released, what is your next step? Will you be, does this experience impact your activism, and what would be perhaps the future of activism in Kenya and in East Africa as a whole?
I think it has impacted definitely my activities, but in a positive way. I feel even more obliged and necessitated to act, to speak out. And that is one thing that I can promise, is that I'll speak out more and more and to make sure that light is shone on all the abductions, all the violations that are happening in Tanzania, and to ensure that we cannot be intimidated and to speak up. That speaking up, as long as I know I'm safe in Kenya, I will continue to do. But if it needs be, I'll find another place and I'll still continue speaking up. My hope is, because of the fact that we are East Africans and because of the way Kenyans are, who really inspire us always, I think that that spirit of citizen solidarity is going to continue. And I'm very confident that now there is a lot of people who have become aware of some of the activities of the Tanzanian government that they never knew about, which is going to actually impact positively any activism that I do.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Maria. We wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you, George.
Indeed, that has been Maria Sarungi Tsehai. She is a Tanzanian activist who had been abducted yesterday but has been released, speaking to us right here on TV47. We are taking a short break. When we come back, we still have more. Please do stay with us.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips. And the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Indeed, welcome back. You're watching The Daily Report with me, George Maringa. Roda Nyamai is on sign language interpretation. Time now for State of the Nation. We did promise you earlier just to have a sneak peek of the conversation that will also be proceeding later on in the broadcast. The Honorable Gigi Kagombe is tonight sandwiched between two ladies, Wambui Nyoto, Vice Chair NCSC, and Justina Wamai, former presidential running mate Roots Party. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program tonight.
Thank you very much.
And perhaps in the spirit of 2000, let me begin by you.
First of all, George, you should have given me the notes. I see people have notes here. The whole, you know, guys have books and pens and everything. I mean, I think it would have been fair for you to give me a heads up and tell me that this is what is going to be facing.
The precedence has been set.
Yes.
Now you know.
Now I know.
Now you know.
Next time I'll be well equipped.
I'll begin by picking your mind on what you can see even in the screens in the studio with the Tanzanian activist Maria Sarungi, her experience. Perhaps let me begin with Gigi. You are in the August House. First of all, from an outsider looking in, we begin to look like the no longer safe haven. Is that what you're picking as a legislator as well?
Well, we cannot hide our heads and say that these things are not happening. But I have been talking to people in the security sector, and they seem genuinely not to, really understand what is happening. So I am confused. Nobody has told us exactly what is happening, including the abductees. So we've not been able to find out exactly where it is. But I know the courts have summoned the IG and the DCI. So we hope that between them, because they're the security apparatus, they'll be able to establish the truth and find out exactly what is happening. But I'm happy to be joined by Wambui Nyoto here because she has previously summoned me to her office of allegations of comments that I made, which were very, just comments that I just made. And I'm wondering what she's doing about the current situation, about the state that we find ourselves in terms of incitement and instead of incitement to violence and all those things. And because, Maringa, when this country goes to the dogs, all of us will sink with it. Whether you support the government or you don't support the government or whatever it is, when the country sinks, it's going to sink with all of us. And I also think, and I would advise the people and the population to know that the Constitution binds all of us. And that we in 2010 passed a Constitution and said that we shall have a way of electing government, that if right now you wanted to predict the election of 2097, you would know even the actual date and the actual time that the polling stations will open. It is so definite and so well defined in the Constitution. And therefore, if we have, and there's nothing wrong with the challenging the government and expressing freedom of speech, but for people to want to use extra constitutional means to remove an elected government, it would be wrong. And therefore, I would urge all Kenyans to understand and respect and uphold and know that we have a civic duty to uphold the Constitution of Kenya. Okay, we'll be coming later to details. Omboy, let me pick you in. And there is a lot that happens when you hear sentiments. We've been seeing the exchanges in burials, even as NCIC and even as a Kenyan. When you look at this same government that is talking about now morals and manners, do you think that they are setting the best precedents in terms of the morals and manners that ought to be followed?
Thank you so much, George, and very good evening to all Kenyans. And I'm happy to share this platform with Mheshimiwa Kagombe and Mheshimiwa Justina. You asked, what is that on the screen and what does it depict? I would say this is the picture of anarchy. I would say this is the picture of lawlessness. I would say this is outright abuse of the rights of the citizens of Kenya and infringement of the freedoms that the Constitution have guaranteed every single Kenyan in this country. These are times we have not seen in our times. Those of us who are millennials and some Gen Zs, we have never come across such anarchy, and the government unable to answer questions that citizens keep asking since June 2024. We are over 6 months asking the same question: who is abducting Kenyans? And as long as the government cannot answer that question, then your guess is as good as mine on who is abducting Kenyans. There is a trend on who is being abducted. It has to be people who have said specific things about some people. So this is not right. People need to continue speaking out against it, and they need to continue to tell the abusers of the rights of Kenyans that we are still watching, and we will not allow this to happen while our mouths are shut. So we have even started abducting other citizens of other countries on behalf of their governments. You know, the case of Maria, the case of Kiza Besige. You know, what are we trying to show the rest of the world? Is who we? What picture are we portraying? What exactly are we trying to speak to people? We are trying to show them that we are backward, and you know, it's a very bad picture. And we are really hoping that this ends. I have been asked what NCIC is doing about abductions. I would like to say here that abductions, first of all, do not fall under the mandate of NCIC. NCIC has a very clear mandate of dealing with the hate mongers, dealing with those who incite others to violence, and many other roles. This issue of abductions squarely lie to the DCI and to the security, all the security departments of this country, the NIS and all of them. And they should have already answered this question as to why the people who incite others to violence have not been arrested and all that. Again, NCIC does not have the power to arrest anyone. In fact, if George, you decided to incite people here in front of me, I have no power to arrest you. I can only call on to DCI to come and arrest you. So if we call on to them and they don't do that, then there is nothing else I can do. Okay. Yes. So unless now the security departments of this country decide to work on to do their job, we are heading nowhere.
Justina, you would, in another, had things changed, actually be deputy president. And in such situations, I don't know whether you'd have envisioned a scenario like this, but what do you make of a government that even says, we do not know who is abducting Kenyans?
Actually, it's shocking, George, and thank you for the opportunity, and also the viewers who are listening to us, who I call lovers of country. What I think is that the disconnect is the fact that we have a population that has skills, that they're not putting those skills into good use. Remember, we have political independence, you have social freedom somewhat, but economic democracy is what we are lacking. So I think the problem is that when people try to vent, they are using the skills they've learned in school to vent. How I wish that this government, as promised with the bottom-up economic agenda they were pushing, how I wish that they would have absorbed, even if not giving them jobs, creating a conducive environment for private sector to employ these people. So it's just skills that are being put into the wrong use. But I wouldn't envision such a situation because remember, at the time we were pushing for economic democracy through decriminalization of industrial hemp. So probably they'd be having a sector on manufacturing, a sector on farming. People would be more busy and would have increased the participatory rate. So looking from outside looking in, I think what government should do, if at all they're not the ones, and they've told us they're not the ones, number one, they should outlaw. At one point, we were told Mungiki was an outlawed sect, so maybe they should outlaw it just to show us that really they're not involved. But number two, they need to go above the pettiness. They need to go above people saying, the supporters of government telling us that someone is abusing them. How about making this youth engaged, making them busy, making them put their skills into better use, so that at least we can say that these youth are not frustrated. But as it is, as long as they are not being economically engaged, we are going to see more of this in the times to come.
In the times to come. So what do you make then of the, before we move on, just briefly then, do you think there needs to be a change in how this is handled, and what would government ideally need to do?
The change should be the government should be working to create opportunities through the bottom-up economic agenda. That is the only change. They need to keep their promises. They need to create jobs. They need to give Mama Boga and Mutu Abuda Boda the opportunity. That is the only change. But they cannot force a youth who's gone through the education system, who has graduated, not to vent. The only thing they can do is create opportunities for them.
Okay, indeed. We shall be coming back to this conversation right here in studio with my guests. They will be staying. That was just the prelude, the teaser of this great conversation we'll have tonight on State of the Nation. Continue engaging us on the socials as well as on their handles. But before then, nurses in many counties across the country have commenced their strike, while clinical officers have threatened to go on nationwide protests on 19th January if the government fails to address their grievances, calling for the disbandment of the Social Health Authority. Anastasia Mukabi reports on the paralyzed services in many counties.
Clinical officers have threatened to begin their nationwide strike from 19th January this year if the government fails to address their grievances.
We'll be going on strike. And when we cross that bridge, nothing is going to take us back until we have full implementation.
Stating their grievances, the clinical officers highlighted that the new Social Health Authority, SHA, has inconvenienced their services to patients.
So we want SHA to give us that privilege to pre-authorize for anesthesia so that we can be able to give anesthesia to our patients.
We cannot even be able to send for a simple test like X-rays, no, not X-rays, there may be MRI. We cannot be able to do a CT scan because we are not able to authorize.
Further, they pointed out that there are cartels in the Ministry of Health, urging the government to intervene and strengthen the health sector.
The cartel is alive and well. The cartel has its feet in KMPDC. It is body in SHA and its head is in Afia House. And decisions are being made by these cartels. The people who are supposed to be responsible are not doing this. And the
medical practitioners have also called on the government to disband the Social Health Authority's management, claiming that the current management is full of impunity.
And we're asking that authority must be disbanded because they do not understand what they are doing. They are acting with impunity and they have become the biggest threat to the universal health coverage.
The people you put at SHA, you keep on changing them day in, day out. All those people are incompetent. There is no way you can get someone from KMPDC sitting in the board of KMPDC to sit in the board of SHA representing KMPDC, yet 90% or all these specialties that we are talking about are done by clinical officers.
The situation was any different in Bungoma County as the health workers kicked off their strike, accusing the county government of ignoring their complaints.
Kila hospital ama kila zahanati yenye iko Bungoma penye nurses wako wafunge virako waende kwa nyumba waongoje izile 10 grievances zenye tumeandika, tusikisane, wakubali kulipa, ndio sasa turudi kasini.
Other counties included Kisii, Homa Bay, and among others. Anastasia Mkabi, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you, Anastasia. Moving on, a section of members of parliament from the Mount Kenya region are now calling for the resignation of Public Service Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi a day after Muturi faulted the government. Nyeri Senator Wahome Wamatinga and Mathura MP Eric Wamombi said that Muturi cannot fight a government he serves and should instead be fighting for development for the region. They said that CS Muturi could have looked for a solution as a senior government official instead of running to the media. They added that the president can now tour the region, arguing that the political pressure that was there has gone down.
Indeed, it's very surprising to hear a minister who sat in the Justice Ministry as the AG does not understand the protocols of how you go about addressing such issues. We could have expected the Muturi to go and record statement, even report, because he knows how the government works, to go and report who is abducting who and where are the abductees. And after that, we wanted him to take what you call a collective responsibility in terms of him being in the executive, other than saying that he's spilling the beans. Only that we know the fact of the matter is he's bitter because of the entry of the other cabinet colleagues in the former regime.
The CS, any person of that stature is entitled to his personal opinion. However, it is wrong for him to come and air the views from outside when he has a privilege which Kenyans doesn't have to sit in cabinet. He sits in cabinet where he can discuss with president, where he can raise those issues in cabinet. The highest decision-making organ in the Republic of Kenya is cabinet.
It is completely hawa watu hawajui Justin Muturi. Nyinyi mnajua Muturi ni nani? Hawajui, they are not concerned. So why should I talk about him and what he said? Wacha tuongee, hawa watu wanataka kusikia nikiongea mambo ya maji. Hata hawajui Justin ni nani, hawajui ni wa wapi. So wanataka anakaaje.
Away from that, the interim Kenya Sugar Board office held a public participation forum at the Mumias Complex grounds, engaging cane farmers and Mumias sugar officials. The focus was on the election of board representatives and discussions about the Sugar Development Levy under the new Sugar Act. As Violet Auma reports, farmers are demanding transparency in the election process.
Nimesikia pia maneno ya tonnage were reviewed.
Months after President William Ruto signed the Sugar Act 2024 into law, the interim Kenya Sugar Board has begun meeting with farmers and stakeholders to ensure the implementation of the law.
So our maoni yote ambao mmetoa tutaangalia.
On Monday, Acting CEO Judiciary met with cane farmers and Mumias sugar officials during a public participation forum at Mumias Sports Complex grounds.
Naangalia tuone vile pia wakulima wanaweza kupata usemi zaidi. Kwa hivyo tunaangalia pia regulations, tuone kama tunaweza kuwa na committees within the region ya kuangalia maneno ya cane management.
As required by the law, the forum focused on ensuring farmers from each catchment area elect representatives to the board alongside 2 additional members, 1 from the private mills and 1 from the public mills.
The law created 5 positions in the board where the farmers are expected to elect their representatives. So those procedures were developed by the transition committee that was appointed by the cabinet secretary, and they did a draft which we have now submitted to the stakeholders for their comments.
Farmers are expected to vote in March, a development widely welcomed by stakeholders.
Sisi tuko tayari kwenda kwa kura na tunasema kwamba wale watu ambao watachaguliwa kuwa kwa Kenya Sugar Board lazima sisi wakulima tukue tumewajua. Hatutaki serikali ikuje na njia zingine za ukora za kutuletea representative wa wakulima.
Just wakulima ambao on the ground. Sio wakulima ambao wanafikiriwa kwamba ni wakulima, real farmers. They are the ones who are going to participate, farmers of land who have cane contract, who have at least a payment indicator. Is it a payment note, a D note, or is it a statement?
President William Ruto has already appointed a chairperson to lead the Kenya Sugar Board. During the forum, farmers also raised pressing issues including delayed payments, inconsistencies in cane pricing and limited access to farm inputs.
Bei ya miwa tafadhali hata tani wa shilingi 8,000. Wakulima wapande miwa pia sisi tujisikie vizuri kama watu wa kahawa, kama watu wa majani.
Mumias Sugar's operations manager Stephen Kihumba revealed that the mill is operating below capacity. He urged farmers who had uprooted their cane to consider replanting, underscoring the need for a steady supply of raw materials to support full operations.
Full capacity, crushing capacity ya Mumias Sugar ni 8,400 tons. Kwa hivyo capacity yenye tunasiaga kwa wakati huu ni kidogo kwa sababu ya miwa ambayo bado kuna miwa changa kidogo.
Mumias East Member of Parliament PK Salasia called on politicians to keep politics out of the mill's operations and instead focus on supporting the reforms introduced under the new Sugar Act.
The banks and other creditors that are there, they want to clear. And so what makes maybe people say that I'm the president to declare that there should be bonuses. We should also get to understand that these companies are private entities.
The forum marked a significant step in aligning governance within the sugar sector with the new law while addressing challenges faced by farmers and millers. Violet Auma, TV47.
Sports news brought to you by Maybet.
Let's get sporty. With 2 days to go before the Confederation of African Football conducts the official draw for the CAF African Nations Championship, 3 legends from the three host countries have been selected to participate in the draw. Kenya's legendary midfielder and the current Football Kenya Federation Deputy President McDonald Maringa has been selected as one of the draw assistants. Uganda's former defensive midfielder Hassan Mawada Waswa alongside Tanzania's most capped player and top goal scorer Mrisho Jumangasa. Now, local football clubs such as Sude FC from Siaya County are calling on the Ministry of Sports to invest and nurture grassroots talent. This comes just days ahead of the African Nations Champions that strictly features only players from the domestic leagues, which are scheduled to kickstart on February 1st in Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. The club believes if invested on, the talent at the grassroots level can represent the country at the highest level. So the FC has produced a number of highly talented players, including Joseph Onyago, who was scouted by the Michael Olunga Football Academy and currently players for the national under-20 soccer team.
Kambali na Sude na hata ukienda wapi upate something, uone uko juu, usidharau nyuma. Usidharau nyuma. Me am proud hata nikirudi hapa nikitrain nao vijana na wape ile motisha waone wenyewe huko juu si vile watu fikiria. Wao pia wanaweza cheza huko. Ndio nikicheza nao hapo wanaona wenyewe kama anaweza nichenga, anaweza chenga mtu wako huko. So hiyo motivation anaona wenyewe pia mimi kumbe naweza.
Such community clubs need to be supported. The support should not just stop at clubs that play the leagues at the county level or regional level or national level. The support must go down to clubs that are really trying to put up things. And the support should not just be in terms of trophy or cash that is given once. The run, including those issues around uniform, the transportation that takes them to those places, all those need to be supported.
With sports done, we are taking a short break. When we come back, Gigi Kagombe, Wamboi Nyoto and Justina Omai will be back to discuss State of the Nation and other arising matters. Please keep your feedback coming and don't go too far.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2. What position were you? Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips. And the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
Thank you for staying with us. Time now for State of the Nation discussion with my guests who are still here in studio. The Honorable Gigi Kagombe, Member of Parliament, Gatundu South, as well as Wamboi Nyoto, Vice Chair NCIC, and Justina Omai, former presidential running mate, Roots Party. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying with us. I'll begin with you, Wamboi, again on this episode, or rather this round. And there is even a lot of lack of discord, or for lack of a better word, dissenting voices in government. We've seen what the Cabinet Secretary had to say yesterday, Justin Muturi, and you would expect or anticipate the action or reaction that will follow following his sentiments. And so that we close on this whole issue of abduction, when he says that if he is yet to receive answers on the abduction of his own son, when people are coming out to say that they know and they have seen those who have been abducted, yet there's still this conversation of the government doesn't know who is abducting and all this. Are we setting, or rather, could you speak to the precedents that seems to be set by such actions, especially from June last year?
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that a sitting cabinet secretary in government has no one to cry to except to the public. He cannot cry to his colleagues in government. He cannot walk into the DCI's office and ask him who abducted my son. He has nobody to run to except to come to the public and seek the answers that Wanjiku himself is seeking. This shows a state of desperation, and it just shows the extent of the rot that we have around. If the son of a whole attorney general, someone who has served in this country as a speaker of the National Assembly for 10 years, someone who has been a former member of parliament, a magistrate, someone with a huge track record to his name, can come out and cry that his son had been abducted. What about Bernard Kavuli's father? What about Billy Mwangi's father? Who else can they run to? It just shows that what Kenyans are thinking is what exactly is happening. And if someone is courageous enough to even come out and speak, regardless of whether their job, they lose their job tomorrow or not, it just shows that surely there's nobody who cares for Kenyans. It just shows that this will continue to happen. Nobody is listening to the cries of Wanjiku. And these heinous acts will continue to happen under our watch, under the watch of the media, under the watch of social media, under the watch of international media and all that. So, George, you're asking who is abducting Kenyans. I don't know. You don't know. But in the minds of everyone, we can all guess who is abducting Kenyans. As long as we cannot be able, we have not even seen any investigation happening. For example, the people who are abducted at the glares of CCTV cameras, the cars' number plates could be seen. These men, their faces were all over the internet. If we want to know who these people are, it is very easy to get to know them. I would imagine that it would be very easy. But nobody wants to do a serious investigation into it. So I think it's just a way of trying to silence Kenyans. But I would imagine the way to silence Kenyans is by working for the people and just listening to them and doing right by them. If our leaders listened when the people spoke, when they said, we do not want an increment of taxes, we do not want this finance bill, we are tired of this university funding model and so many other things. We do not, this fertilizer is fake and so many other things. If our leaders listened at that time and acted on those issues, we would not be in the state that we are in at this moment. The Gen Zs could not have gone to the streets.
Yeah.
And the youths could not be using their time that they're supposed to be working to be drawing cartoons in the internet and sharing them all over. They would be working, you know. So I wish the leaders that we have could listen to what Wanjiku wants and act by them, because the government has the resources to do anything that they are able, that the Wanjiku requires of them to do.
Mheshimiwa Gigi Kagombe, so where would Kenyans then ideally turn to? They are waiting for Parliament, the House, to question and, you know, probe further. I mean, where do Kenyans go to?
First of all, before I come to that, you know, it's very sad, it's very unfortunate when I listen to Wambui Nyuto talking about employment of the youth. And I expected better from her because having shared an alma mater, of course, I know what happens at the University of Nairobi is not what she's talking about, because I would have expected better of her, because we know how to create jobs. And, you know, we must stop discussing these things as isolated cases. And the state of the nation, what I would expect is for us to discuss the actual state of this nation. Do we have an economic problem? Yes. Is there rampant unemployment? Yes. Do we have generally people frustrated and feeling a certain way? Yes. Shall we get this solution by going to the streets? No. Do we have a political problem? Yes. Will we get a solution to our economic problems by political rhetoric? No. If you're hungry, the only thing that fixes your hunger is eating. You cannot go and sing and get food. You cannot go pray and get food. You have to eat. We have an economic problem in this country, and we'll have to address it. The economic problem we have is that, and it's not something that has just come. President William Ruto did not come with jobs. And if you look at the statistics, you'll find that we had an additional 700,000 formal jobs in 2023 than we had in 2022. And if you look at the employment scale, and it has been rising. But you ask yourself, how do we create jobs? Is this something that you do overnight? No. Jobs are created through fiscal policy. And fiscal policy, the greatest piece of fiscal policy is the Finance Act that comes and says, last year we had imported goods worth 3.6 trillion and created a deficit in the balance of trade of about 1.6 trillion Kenya shillings. How do we fix it? We have to create fiscal policy that allows for more local manufacturing and production as opposed to importation. Because that is how we create jobs here. Because every time we go and get goods from other countries, we are actually creating employment in those other countries that we are importing from. But that said, I want to look at this scenario because for us, if what we are interested in is putting an end to the problems that we have, we shall have to be candid with ourselves and stop hiding our heads in the sand and address the issue of economic development in this country. And there's nobody who is going to, there will be no president who will ever come and create employment without fiscal policy. It doesn't happen in this country, it doesn't happen anywhere in the world. We will have to sit and agree that there must be proper fiscal policy, and it's not easy.
Okay.
Stopping. Let me tell you, by the way, George.
As you tell me.
I refuse. I refuse to address those things as you want me to address them in bits and pieces because I have a broader spectrum, and from where I sit.
Let's just oppose that with our neighbors. Even President Ruto has admitted Tanzania is doing well business-wise. They have 6 months rebates. When you come in and you start a business, you have a 6-month rebate. The government does not come for your taxes. Aren't that such the policies that we should, quote-unquote, emulate if we really want to solve these fiscal policies that you're talking about?
Yes, but you must cut your cloth according to your size. Tanzania, the problem with our country is that we have, when I used to be in the media, we would get a brief from a client and we would normally say that the brief from the client is this big, but they have this size of budget. That's what happens in this country. We have expectations. Everybody wants a road here, a school here, government, the expectations of government that we put ourselves as politicians. When we are going to put a budget, we are reading a budget of 3.7 trillion in an economy of GDP of 13 trillion. You know what that means? It means, and where does the budget come from? It comes from the pressure that comes from the people, because my people want water, my people want roads, my people want education, my people want bursary, my people want healthcare, my people want all those things. If you go to Tanzania and you look at their infrastructure, the general infrastructure, if you live there, forget the railway and everything. If you look at the general infrastructure, you look at how many kilometers of road do they have vis-a-vis what we have in Kenya. What is their internet penetration? What is their electricity penetration? But they're okay because politically, they have learned to cut their cloth according to their size. Now, in this country, and I was just having a conversation here with Justina and saying that government takes 14% of the GDP. If you look at that amount, the 3.7 trillion that you're talking about is about our tax to GDP ratio is at 14%. The rest of the 86% of this GDP is held in private hands. What we have decided to do with that money in the private hands, if you ask Madam Nyoto here, when we left school, we were employed by a gentleman called SK Macharia at Citizen, one person who employed hundreds of us. And he didn't live large. He used to have a small car over there, but he would make sure that we got a salary to go home. He created jobs for hundreds of us. If you ask the people who have been given privileges, who are 40 years, who are the age that SK was when he was employing us, and how much jobs they've created for the people behind them, they will tell you that what they have is big cars, they drive Range Rovers, and they drink very expensive alcohol, and they are all over in these expensive bars and in Airbnbs. That is how we've decided to spend our money. Okay. And what we have decided as a country is that we will compete who exports more money than the other, who brings in a guzzler, we no longer compete against who has best production, who is employing the most people. That we stopped. And you must understand that as a country, we must have a culture of creating employment for the people behind us. These solutions will not be found by any government. The solution to these economic problems that we have are cultural. They will not be created by any government. There is no government, even if we gave Wambui Nyoto to the presidency next year, or 2027.
Give me.
She will still, by the way, let me tell you, if you got all the crop of leaders, all the MPs and the president and all the MCAs, and you remove them from this country, and tomorrow, we will still have no employment.
Okay.
Maybe George, just a moment before you go to Mheshimiwa Justina. I think Mheshimiwa Kagombe missed the part where we saw that construction in Kenya has gone to an all-time low. We are now 22 years behind in terms of construction. During Moi's era, the rate of construction then is what we are experiencing now. So what is the magic that was done by Mheshimiwa Kibaki during his 10 years? What is the magic that was done by His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta? And of course, our economy grew a lot at that time. So we would expect bigger and better things happening. And where do we expect to get the jobs for Kenyans if nothing is happening? In fact, I remember about 3-4 years ago, we could hear that Kenya is a construction site because you move 100 meters, something is happening here. You move 500 meters, something else is coming up. But now that is not something we see anymore. We only see stalled projects. I don't know which contractor abandoned the site and all that. These are the areas where most of our youths, some of them could be having the jobs, but now they are jobless because there is no construction happening.
Maringa, on issue of construction, as Wambui puts it, as an economist, you will realize that what happens when we go to construction, when private money goes into construction, you will find that someone who has access to 100 million shillings will build a flat and employ 3 people, a watchman, a day watchman, a night watchman, and maybe a caretaker, and probably someone to watch the stairs. If we were in production, that same money would employ a lot more people than going into construction. And by the way, we must decide which side we want to be on. Mara, they are telling us, hakuna mtu hana nyumba, kila mtu akona nyumba yake, muache kujenga manyumba. But it's because they fail to see the bigger picture. That government wants to take over housing so that private money, because private money is what actually employs our people, so that you take that private money, you encourage private money to go into other modes of investment that will create more jobs than housing. Housing and construction of houses, it's a good thing. It's an indicator that there's probably money, but it does not create proper employment. Let's bring in Justina. You've been simmering and listening to your co-panelists. How do you make about all this?
I'm happy because they have agreed with me. The problem is economic. And remember, I'm a champion of economic democracy. But from the look of things, Mheshimiwa should be telling us where that business reform bill has reached in the National Assembly. Because that is, if at all we are creating a conducive environment, we should create it through legislations. Again, creating a conducive environment for business to work is even making regulations flexible. Today, when you want to set up just something or something small, Kanjo is on your case, I don't know who is on your case. So even the cost of initially getting into business is discouraging. And that is why people prefer to buy those V8s, because even if you decide to get into business, there are so many factors that limit you. So I think the conversation right now, and every youth should understand, but also government has also failed. Remember when they came into power, they told us dynasty was the problem. So Kenyans are like, dynasty left, and the problem is still there, unemployment is still there. So instead of even arguing or fighting or even saying that Justin has failed by going to on television to talk about his son, they should be telling us this is how we are creating a conducive environment for private sector to thrive. And when I say private sector, I don't mean small things, a small saloon. I mean large-scale business where people can create employment, government can collect income tax, they can collect VAT. They need to spur up the fact that Kenyans can think on how to create business. So right now, the cases that are happening of people being taken away, like I said, is an issue of skills that are not being put into good use. So from all this, Mheshimiwa should tell us, how do we communicate? And being in government, because he's on the government side, they should come up with a strategy and explain to us what he's saying, that we cannot finish the economic problem today. But they need to also rectify that they said it was the dynasty's fault. And again, maybe the dynasties left, the ones who are owners of capital. So those are the disconnects that you're having in the economy. So even when we talk about, people employed then, people graduate now, over time, we have a larger population of people who have gone through school, people who are frustrated, people who feel, I am better, I can offer my skills. I know of a few people who try to even sell their innovation ideas to government. But where are you selling your idea? If today he's the guy, Peter Mbaye, in charge of delivery, if he himself, who is in government, is being frustrated in terms of delivery, then what about an outsider who has an innovative idea, who has a solution to the problems, but they cannot be heard? That is a problem we are facing.
Gigi, I know you're asking to respond. The reason you put me here is so that I can take the baton from this side and pass it on this side. Okay, I agree that role. I will take that role. What I need to tell Justina is, first of all, and I agree largely with what she's saying, but we have an economic problem. I actually just realized the other day, I was trying to put up a small shop somewhere in Nairobi, and I realized the cost of licensing is impossible. But who makes these laws? The county assemblies. You know, we must be honest with ourselves. We created a monster of a constitution. And I think if you look at the committee of experts that created the constitution, it had the activists, the likes of Wambui here, ni watu wa kupiga kelele, ni watu wazuri.
Sisi ni watu wa policies.
Wale watu ambao, the people who were not represented in that committee of experts, there were no people who thought about the economics of this country. And let me tell you something. We are running a bloated government. We are running a completely bloated government. Tell me the role that Wambui Njutu serves at NCIC.
Tell us the role that you serve in Gatondo South, and you haven't been there for 3 months.
Wait. You know, we say these things. You ask her what she has done for the last 6 years that she's been in the
I will
position,
tell you.
And you realize that the Constitution did not think about the cost of funding the roles that they give and the functions that they give to different commissions. I don't know what. We have a parliament that has 349 people and a senate of around 60. What? I'm being honest, by the way. This thing, I'm not saying because I'm the member of parliament that I say parliament is good. It's bloated. We have 349 members of parliament. We have, I don't know, 1,400 something MCAs. We have Wanjiku, you know, when the gentleman called Ekuru Okot was running and saying Punda amechoka, he was actually serious, and I supported that initiative, that Punda amechoka, because we have burdened Wanjiku with so much bills to run a government that we have. Can you imagine in the budget that we did not pass, that the president didn't sign, of 3.7 trillion shillings, only about 700 billion shillings was going to development. The rest of the money is to support this bloated government and to repay loans that have been taken to also pay this government that is bloated. So that is one thing. And therefore, when you look at like cost of making business, you know, ultimately what makes sense is even those small businesses are important. They create, over time, they create employment, because if you're able to invest your 200,000 shillings in a whatever business it is, a salon or whatever, you will have in some barber shop, you'll have some 2, 3, 4 people that you will have employed. So if you have 2 million people who have such jobs and have taken over 3, 4 other people that they have given meaningful employment over time, it will be good. But are you going to touch the county governments and tell them how to make laws and the money that they're going to make? You won't. So what we did is that we devolved, even this devolution, we devolved legacy and embezzlement of funds to 47 centers. So we created a monster of a government. And that will have to be addressed if you're going to have peace and if you're going to have employment. Because when people are employed, and these things, you're not going, nobody, I tell you, Justina, if you took this position, if you are now the deputy president, you would not have come with jobs from your house. You would have had to come and create
a conducive
environment to do that. And it takes time. And that is why we're saying that, for example, that's why we're doing business, the act on
business
reforms. And many other small pieces of fiscal policy that would encourage investment into this country by locals and also by people from outside this country.
You know, George, when Mheshimiwa speaks, you know, it's even getting funny, because a lawmaker is ranting on TV about how we have the wrong laws. You know, it's unheard of. He should tell us what laws has he proposed, what bills has he proposed in Parliament to assist businesses. Because if you try to open a business today, apart from those county licenses and all that, you also have KRA that takes almost everything, every single profit that you make in that business. And that is why you have businesses opening 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, 2 years down the line, they are closing. Again, the inconsistency of the taxation that we have, meaning nobody can be able to project that when I invest in this business, in the next 5 years, these are the profits I am going to make, because these are the profits these are the taxes I'm going to make, these are the running costs that I'm going to have. But we have lawmakers who change the taxation regimes every single year, meaning business people cannot be able to project that next year this will be this particular amount is going to go into taxation. Again, if we have a bloated payroll, what are they doing about it? If they feel that Wambui Nyoto's salary is a pain, why can't they come up with a law? In fact, our bill has been sitting in Parliament for the last 6 years. What have they done about it as members of Parliament? You know, I cannot be the problem solver and I go out there and speak about the problem myself. This is
Maringa,
not what we expect
what you're suffering in this
from
country,
our leaders.
The problem in this country is over legislation. So when Wambui Nyoto tells me to what laws I have made, what we're suffering from is over legislation. If you ask yourself, if you look at the government, at the county government and the laws that is made about licensing, why do you need a license to do business? What is that thing? It is a very colonial over legislation, but I don't expect Wambui Nyoto to understand that. But it's okay. But what I'm saying is...
Kagombe has no single business in this country. I am a serious business woman who pays millions of taxes in this country. So, Kagombe, if you have never done any business except funny things here and there, you cannot understand what I'm talking about.
But I'm talking about over legislation. And I'm saying over legislation that we have had in the county governments especially is what is an impediment to government, because what we do is every time you see, oh, now, I don't know, there's a lot of alcohol being consumed, then you create a law for that specific industry. Then there's mining that is happening in Kakuma, then we create another piece of legislation for that particular industry. And that is what is stifling business. So what I think, and some of this legislation that we have, for example, changing the Constitution, is not a bill that you bring to Parliament. It's not something. We have a prescribed way of bringing changes that have serious and significant changes to the Constitution. And you know how they are brought. You know, it doesn't have to be brought by a member of Parliament. It has to be a people-led initiative. We have seen some of this. I mean, when President Uhuru brought in BBI, it was stopped by the courts because of where it started. It was not a people-driven affair. And therefore, we find ourselves in that situation. But the environment that we find ourselves in is not a good environment to start talking about, because you see, we also have a country to maintain.
Okay.
And other than just making laws, we have a responsibility as leaders to make sure that the country also has peace and that it's livable, because even when there are economic issues, then peace is also of great importance. And therefore, it would be foolhardy right now to bring in changes in the Constitution and say you want to bring in a referendum. It would be frowned upon by the people. And therefore, you just sit, watch, observe, and wait for time to come when you can do that.
Justina, as you observe, we are hearing quotes from Kenya Kwanza about, they're just talking about the presidency, the term limits, and, some allusion of some sorts. And when you listen to this, it sort of, fans and adds fuel to their anger and, the distraughtness of Kenyans, if you would say so. And at the center of this is young people who are not fearing to speak their minds. From your perspective, then, whereas an economic solution is what is required, yes, what would then necessitate and provide the environment for young people to then perhaps come up with the ideas, whereas even business is not for everyone, employment is not for everyone?
I think maybe where we fail from the onset. Remember, after colonialism, yes, why were Kenyans educated? They were educated to get into public office. So over time, we've been educated that when I finish school, I'm going to get a job. And that is now where we're still in that state. But what would change? Maybe even without changing the Constitution. Remember, the only sector that is thriving today is politics and being in government. If you ask someone today, even our parents, they know when you get into government, you're going to make money. So probably if we create a conducive environment for even private sector to thrive, including even paying the tax refunds to these big companies. Remember, I think KRA owns around 16 billion too as tax refunds. Maybe the incentives would be even paying them so that they feel motivated to continue having business in Kenya. Also, ordering the disorder in the factors of production, like energy, cost of energy. Those are conversations where government should have a round table with the private sector, and then they tell them the pain points are here, we can make profit when you do this and this. Because remember, the role of government at this point is facilitating the success of private sector. So what would happen? One, let's focus our education away from employment. But number two, we have to make politics not lucrative. We have to make politics not attractive, hence making other options. And when I say private sector, not necessarily you owning a business. You can also be employed in private sector. There was a time people used to leave government and go work for private sector. Why is it so that now people are preferring, I don't want to go to private sector, I want to stay in government? Because it seems there's so much money in government which the citizens are not seeing. So making the environment conducive so that even when government is collecting taxes, they avoid the tax base. But again, our education, do we sit back and ask ourselves, am I built to just finish school and get a job in government? No, there should be options for us and for the youth to be shown that even if you're a swimmer, you're going to university as a swimmer. That is a scholarship. And that is why even the problem you're having right now with the university funding. Kenyans are saying, no, government should make it free. It's not possible. It can never be free. But how much opportunity have we created that not all of us will go into university to do a BCom, to do a doctorate, to do whatever. Others can have opportunities. You drop away from here, you're a coach, you're a cricket coach, you're an athlete. As long as other sectors are thriving, we won't even have pressures of everyone wanting to go to the university and government is forced to pay university fees for people, or lowering or even increasing, as they're saying the model, increasing the fees. So there's so much beyond the business aspect. It also goes back to the workforce, us, and our education system.
Wambui, and I see some comments on YouTube. Mwangi wa Shogi saying, watching from Muranga, say hi to Gadaya Muranga, Wambui Nyutu. And there is a lot that comes to NCIC in terms of even the moral fabric that we're seeing from his colleagues, you know. You remember that day there was funerals on both sides. There was literally so much agitation. Would you call that incitement?
Yeah, first of all, hi back to Mwangi from Muranga. You see, it is them who make the laws. It is them who made the NCI Act. We are operating at the mercy of Parliament. How can Gigi Kagombe, being someone who is likely to utter words that may be insightful or something, how can he make a law against himself? You know, how can he allow that we have a strong act that will prosecute him? You know, it is not possible. It might not necessarily be Gigi Kagombe, but any other member of parliament might not want to give NCIC the strong act that will be able to enable it to do its job. So we are having, and we are doing a lot. We are monitoring, and we have, in fact, our offices are full of files of people who have made these insightful and hateful and hate speech remarks all over the country. But what do you do with those files, Mr. George? What you do with them is that you forward them to the DPP. Once your investigations is done, you forward them to the DPP for prosecution. If the DPP chooses not to prosecute Mheshimiwa Kagombe, NCIC has no leverage to that. If the DCI refuses to assist with the investigations, then NCIC cannot be able to function properly. And that is why in the beginning in the middle of the term of the commissioners, there was a call that the NCIC gets prosecutorial powers, that the act is strengthened. And these bills were taken to parliament. In fact, they have been sitting there for such a long time, but nothing has been done about them. So that being only one of the functions of the commission, the commission has very many other functions, but because this one specifically touches on leaders and politicians, then it gets the most airtime. The most airtime. Yes.
Mheshimiwa Gigi, this year, the year starts with the vetting of the CSs tomorrow, the CS nominees. And there's someone who's even asking, instead of prioritizing, and whereas I know there is the rota and the schedule of parliament, the recess and all that, priorities is what Kenyans feel are wrong when it comes to arms of government. And there will be the finance bill coming up again, the budget making process. Do you think that as the House, whereas you're not the Speaker, as legislators, whereas it's bloated, the priorities will still be set as we require as a country?
I think, just a little before we talk about the priorities, I think what NCIC has done, and I have listened to Wambui Nyuto very keenly, she said that law, they imagined that law was made for politicians. It was made for people who incite, whether a politician or not. And if you listen to what she said, they have this thinking that NCIC was made for politicians, and that is why they have not been able to do their work properly, because I think they misconstrued the act to be directed at certain people. Because if you create incitement, when you are a radio presenter, a TV presenter, and you create incitement, you don't necessarily have to be a politician. But anyway, the
act are politicians.
You'll get your chance to respond. Now it's my turn. Priorities in the country and priorities in parliament, priorities within government, is really something that we must think about. But I think the position we find ourselves in is very tight, because what is of utmost importance? First, the country must meet its external obligations. We must pay our debts. That's obligation. That's priority number one. Priority number two is that this country must pay and must meet and must honor its payroll, bloated as it is. And then this country must first deal with very first issues like health, education, security, and all those things before we come to development and before we come to, you know, roads and those other things. That's the priority that I think we must think about. But I think also we cannot forget that there's politics in all these things. And it is not right to be hypocritical and say that, oh, you know, there's politics in all this. If we come to parliament, what a member of parliament from Bita will be looking for will be different from what I will be looking for, because we are all scrambling to make sure that we gain and we bring development to our regions. That is how the architecture of politics in this country is, such that you hardly hear a member of parliament from, say, Kiambu, supporting the creation of a road in Marsabit or in Kitui. They will, if you hear, and you've seen it, that when you're talking about sugar belt and we're talking about sugar issues, the people who will be debating about that particular issue are people from the sugar place. When I'm discussing issues with tea, you will find that there's no member of parliament who comes from a non-tea producing area who will be supporting your motion. Therefore, we must be honest enough that as a people, because you see, even members of those people who are there elected and they are looking at, making sure they do what is right by the people who elected them. And therefore, you find that priorities become a problem, depending, because priorities a lot of times will depend on where you sit and from the lenses through which you see the priority.
All right. Justina, someone says, Cornelius, thank you for the show. Ask Honorable Justina if she acknowledges the fact that abduction, in as much as government is accused, there could be a possibility that some could be carrying it out to tarnish government's name, since no abductee has come out to explain to DCI anything. Could they be fearing consequences? She should condemn both unlawful social media use and condemn abduction too, and not one-sided inclination. That's being skewed and unfair.
What's that person's name?
Cornelius.
Okay, I think maybe we don't know the truth. If government themselves, who have the intelligence, cannot explain. One thing I know is that really when we are told that people are abducting themselves, in a country where people are hungry, in a country people cannot afford to pay rent, surely how do you hire props, guns, you hire those guys who are coming in like, you know, commando style? No, I think government knows something. So I condemn either way. The fact is we need to all accept, whether you're in government, whether you're a citizen, whether you're a lover of this country, is the fact that the problem is economical. And how do we bridge the gap? That is the argument you should always say. And when I see Kenyans saying that must go, and then who comes? Because guys are saying whatever happens must go. Okay, fine. What is the solution, or who is the alternative? Who is going to bridge the gap? Who is going to give the solutions to what must go has not done? But let me add that on the issue of incitement, remember when there's competition, it becomes cutthroat. So when we are told, for instance, Mheshimiwa Kagombe is accused of inciting people, he's trying to protect his position, because out there it's cold, away from politics, no other sector is thriving. So if Kenyans are given an opportunity to thrive in other sectors, they'll have so much to lose in terms of even listening to someone who is inciting them. You'll have a house that you're afraid someone is going to burn. You'll have a car that you're afraid someone is going to break whatever, the windows and all that. So the issue here is, do we really need policing in terms of incitement? No, just make Kenyans have something to lose, so that when you're incited and you look at what you're about to lose, you're not going to listen to the person who is inciting you. And also on the issue of debt, Mheshimiwa has told us, yes, we have obligations to pay. But remember, there's a time the control of budget told us that she cannot peg the Eurobond money to a particular project. I think one of the priorities showing goodwill to Kenyans is how do they come up, whether it's a law or whatever it is, how do we follow the people who took the Eurobond money? I think there somewhat Kenyans will feel like there's goodwill from Parliament to move us away from paying a debt that did not have impact in our economy.
Wambui, there is the new wave that we are seeing. Now Kenyans are taking matters on their hands. We did see what the alleged DCI officers faced in Nakuru, those that were arresting someone, as well as Kirinyaga. In terms of citizenry and mass action, is this the type that should be encouraged in how they're handling even the DCI vehicles and everything else?
You see, when citizens cry to the law and the law does not answer them, then they resort to desperation. It is very unfortunate that citizens feel naked, feel exposed, and feel that nobody is there to fight for them, nobody is there to protect them, and they only feel that they can take the rights and the matter into their own hands and deal with these issues. It is not right that our citizens are being subjected to this. And probably how this can be solved is if the police are responsive. That if someone has been abducted, they can be able to investigate, and that we can see, you know, the laws of natural justice, you know, justice and the laws of equity. Justice must not only be done, but it must be seen to be done. So we must see that the police are doing their jobs in terms of investigating these abductions. They must show us, we came here, we found this, you know, even when there are petty crimes that happen, we see the trail of investigations, we see how they carry out the evidence and all that. So if they can show the public that they are working on these cases, then people cannot take matters into their own hands, Mr. George.
Yeah, Mheshimiwa, is the ground becoming hot?
I don't think there's nothing unusual. You know. By the way, the more things change, the more they remain the same. I mean, all these things that you're seeing, that we are bringing out, and oh, Muturi said what? Resignations of vice president started in 1966. In 89 again, Matiba resigned from a cabinet. Mother Karua has resigned from cabinet. Raila Odinga has resigned from cabinet. Those are not things that are new. Those things that someone resigned, they're feeling frustrated. They started in 1966. There's nothing new. That's number one. Number two, I don't know how we expect the police to work while, you see, if a uniformed police officer is an arrest is not something that you do like in church. It's not receiving the Holy Communion where you come and bow before the police and then no. When there is a criminal being arrested by a uniformed police officer who is armed, and people come and round the police officer and say, you're not going to do this, then how do you expect them to do investigations? Then, so we must decide what we want as a country. And number three, whoever you are, continue encouraging anarchy. It will bite you. And when there's anarchy in this country, it will come for you, and it will come for your neighbor, it will come for your mother. We were here in 2007, when the anarchy that was encouraged from 2003 and 2005 during the referendum went all the way to 2007 and resulted in chaos. The people who suffered is everyone. When we were in Parliament and people were beating drums of war about the finance bill, when the Gen Zs came, they did not save the people who had said no and say, okay, now you're dealing with the people who said this. No, they dealt with everybody equally, because we have, as a country, we have collective responsibility. And let me say this. The last line of our defense for this country is the Constitution. The moment we want to go and say, oh, now we're very frustrated, so we'll take things and the law into our hands, that is the beginning of anarchy, and that is the beginning of chaos, and that is the beginning of our collapse and the economic disaster for this country. And by the way, George,
yes,
we have examples all over around us. We have Somalia here, we have Sudan here, we have South Sudan, we have Eritrea, we have Addis Ababa, we have Ethiopia, we have Rwanda, we have Burundi, we have Congo, we have all these countries to see from and learn and know what anarchy leads to. I have my Baba, the guy who shaves my hair the other day, told me he's a graduate from Burundi, but he's a Baba in Kenya, and he says, you guys have never seen chaos. You think now that you should resort to go to the streets? When there's no government, it tells you that we have, in Congo here, we have 100 rebel groups who come and feed on, they now don't even come for money. They come for your milk and your eggs and your maize and your potatoes. And you must pay tax in those goods because they must be fed. The line that I am seeing leaders encouraging us to go, simply because, now we have economic problems, so we find ourselves in a hole. What we do is dig deeper. I would want to distance myself from such behavior and such encouraging, and I would be so shocked. And by the way, I say this with a lot of respect and humility. When the person in charge of NCIC is saying that people can get frustrated and take the law into their hands, I feel very frustrated.
Justina, I will come to... Okay, you want to react? Okay. Yes.
Okay, of course, I would expect him to interest. But everyone knows that is not what I said. I just want to inform him of the rights or the differences between an arrest and an abduction. I think Article 49 of the Constitution of Kenya. A uniformed police officer can abduct you and take you to a police station. Gives the right, clearly shows the rights of an arrested person, including when you are arrested, you are informed the reason for your arrest in a language that you understand. An arrested person has the right to remain silent. An arrested person has the right to communicate with an advocate or a family member, at least a phone call, to be able to inform the people of why they have been arrested. They have a right to be held separately from people serving a sentence and so many other rights that we have. But what are we seeing? We are seeing something that is totally different from what an arrest is. We are seeing people being abducted, including being covered up and thrown into cars and being held incommunicado for days and days, over 2 weeks, And, those who have come out and they have told us what has happened is that they are telling us they do not even know who it is that had abducted them because all this time they could not see them. So is that really an arrest? Mr. George?
Okay.
No, I am not referring to. I am not. Maringa, you talked about 2 incidences, yes, which happened today, and those are the incidences I am reporting to. So again, one boy would want to misquote me and say that I'm talking about the abduction. But it's okay because it suits her interest. And what is good for the goose is good for the gander.
Not using her. The issue of taking matters into their own hands. We did see the protests last year, and there have been talk of more that was supposed to happen at the beginning of the year. We are seeing what Kenyans are doing to these Subarus, the vehicles of the DCI and all. I mean, what is the thin line between we do not want lawlessness and following the law?
The thin line between that is having something to lose. And remember, that when you have something to lose, George, you will not allow yourself to be at a point where what you own is going to be destroyed. And that is why when Mheshimiwa tells us that from today we are going to do this, we are going to pass the Rubicon, we might be like Congo, but the only way we can be saved by Parliament in general, including Senate, where Mheshimiwa sits, is influencing and shaping policies that make life easier for Kenyans, that make Kenyans busy, that make Kenyans have something to lose. I think that is the thin line. But I also want to remind Kenyans that there was a time, maybe we are discouraged because there was a time after Kibaki came into power, Kenyans would arrest the police and take them to a police station. So maybe Kenyans over time are frustrated because now where can we report this police? Where can we report somebody who is in power but is not doing what is according to the law? So the thin line is, can we do what is right? Can we have something to lose? Can we be busy? Because the honest situation is that people are idle in this country. And that is why people are venting on other people. And someone is thinking that I am in this situation because of Wamboi, because of Kagombe, they're earning a salary out of our taxes. Remembering that you don't even pay taxes yourself, you're not employed, you don't do anything. But you're seeing that the people in government, the people who are earning a salary, are the reason why you're not moving in the right direction, or you're not achieving your vision as a Kenya. So the thin line is have something to lose, that is through policies and legislations that are influenced in Parliament.
Closing remarks. And the beginning, you, Mheshimiwa Gigi, and you have a message here. Hi, I'm Joel from Gatundu South, Mutumo area. Ask Mahesh when he will come to our rescue. We don't have electricity, we use solar.
In Gatundu?
Yes.
That must
South
be
Mutumo area.
Mutomo.
Mutumo. Is Mutumo?
Must be a misspelling.
M-U-T-U-M-O.
Must be Mutomo. Anyway, that must be an issue of Kenya Power about maybe a transformer somewhere, but I'll check it out by tomorrow. Tell him tomorrow I will be there. I will be in Mutomo to find out with the Kenya Power people. We shall rectify that problem. My closing remark is that whatever we do, we only have one country. Let's save it.
Wamboi?
Yeah, thank you so much, George, and to my colleagues for this discussion that we have had. For me, as a commissioner for peace, I would only wish that we follow the laws that are there, and that every single institution that has been given the role of safeguarding the rights and the freedoms of Kenyans continue to do their job diligently. To us, the Kenyans, this is our country. We love it. We shall not benefit in any way if anything goes wrong. So it is up to us to also uphold the law and to work hard so that we are able to meet all the expectations in our homes and everywhere else. Have a good night. Thank you.
Indeed. Justina, you get the last word.
As a champion of economic democracy, my challenge goes to the government. Government should stop telling us that they have lowered the cost of unga. Remember, they do not have a miller. They are not in competition. They are not in business. So how do they change their communication? By making Kenyans understand that they are not in business, but they are facilitators of making business thrive. That is the only way that Kenyans will get jobs. That is the only way government will collect taxes. That is the only way we can meet our obligations. So the challenge is that they need to change their communication strategy. They need to be deliberate, and they need to realize that for Kenyans to keep quiet, they must be busy, they must be earning, they must have something to lose. Good night, lovers of country.
Absolutely, and what a way to wind up the conversation tonight. We've been speaking to Justina Wamai, our former presidential running mate, Roots Party, Gigi Kagombe, Member of Parliament, Gatundu South, and Wambui Nyoto, Vice Chair, NCIC. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is George Maringa. On Sign Language Interpretation has been Rhoda Nyamai. Good night. I'll see you next time. Stay safe and catch 12.